What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to The Standard, Episode 3. I'm here with Matt Paradis, one of my first ever NFL athletes and one of my best friends now. He was one of the first guys that's really ever challenged and pushed me. He's got one of the craziest stories that you'll hear, and excited to have him on. Thanks for being here, Matt.
Yeah, fired up to be here. This is awesome.
Just so you guys know, Matt and I are real close, and he's going to be giving me a lot of smack, and he knows I'm a little nervous still doing this, but appreciate you, man. I knew you were coming to town, and you were literally like the first guy that I was like, okay, we got to have Matt on here because of your story. So appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, this is fun. I'm going to talk a little smack. I know you'll give it right back. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So give a little background on you, Matt. So Matt is from Council, Idaho. So they played 8-man football.
8-man,
he played basketball in 8-foot hoops. I always joke about back there.
Still couldn't dunk, though.
Yeah, still couldn't dunk. 3-sport guy.
Yeah.
Basketball and track, and then he ended up being a walk-on at Boise State, got drafted to the Denver Broncos, won a Super Bowl, played with Charlotte. I was looking it up, doing some research. I don't even know if you knew, but you were the 4th highest paid center in the NFL at one time in the world, which is pretty crazy. And so, yeah, we're going to kind of go through that, and then the relationship you and I have had. You know, when do you remember when you started training with me? What year?
I don't remember the year. It would have been 2016, and then I had the hip surgeries the next year, so I think I trained with you a year, and then I was doing rehab the next year.
Yep, and then the ankle the year after that?
A couple years after that,
Yep,
yeah.
after that.
Yep.
So I'm going to give you a little quick summary of your story, but then you kind of go in depth with that. So from Council, farm family.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Give me a little bit of your process real quick on how you went through it, but then, you know, how you got recruited by Boise State, and then the issues you dealt with coming from a small school, and then injury in high school and stuff like that. Kind of just give me a little rundown of that.
Yeah, so grew up in Council outside of town on a cattle ranch. It was a great way to grow up. Lots of work. Work never ended, but was able to play some sports throughout it. Football was my favorite, and I excelled at it in high school. It was played both sides of the ball and played O-line, D-line, but being in that small town, it's really hard to get recruited. So we knew that going in, and when I was a sophomore, going into my sophomore year, we started going to the BSU camp. I went by myself the first year, and just new kid on the block, just trying to learn the ropes. But learned a lot at the BSU camp. Went back every year, and by my senior year, this still wasn't getting any recruiting. A couple NAIA schools were making a couple phone calls, but I went to that camp before my senior year and just treated it like a job interview. It was 5 days, and it's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get noticed. Was playing majority D-line at the camp. That's what I wanted to play in college. And I'll never forget it. We were doing, I was probably like day 3 of the camp. We were doing offensive line, defensive line, just base on base. Who's stronger, who's tougher.
Yep.
And they put, I don't know if they still do it this way, they put all the guys they recruit in one area. They're off working with them, and everyone else is, hundreds of kids are off to the self, myself included. And I was 3rd in line on the defensive line side, and this massive offensive lineman was up to go, and I think he ended up playing Idaho State, I'm not sure, but the 2 kids in front of me were not very big. They were probably maybe 200 pounds, and that guy was a good 300 pounds easy. And the guy in the front turned around to the guy behind him and was like, hey, do you want to go? And the guy behind was like, no. And I was just like, I'll go. Put me in. Went against him and did very well, at which point Coach Kwiatkowski was the D-line coach, and he noticed that and pulled me over to the recruiting side with all the guys they are recruiting, and then just balled out against those guys. And Kwiatkowski, right after the session ended, pulled me to the side and said, Brian Harsin recruits Idaho. He's in the indoor over there. I need you to run over there and introduce yourself to him right now. So did that. Obviously, that kind of got the ball rolling, talking to Boise State, which was my dream school. I'm from Idaho. I've followed Boise State, loved the program. They're amazing. And everything was going good. Season starts. Not talking to Boise State a ton, but talking to some other schools a little bit. And then I blew out my knee.
This is sophomore or junior year?
Senior year. This is all senior year, yeah. Everything was good the younger years, but I wasn't, no one recruits. Idaho doesn't get recruited hard anyways, but especially 8-man school. Doesn't matter how good you are. It's just the numbers game. They're not going to get out there. So
Right.
Blew out my knee and kind of lucked out in that the Boise State team surgeon ended up doing my surgery. Well, to backtrack, I braced it up and finished the season, but through that relationship with
So you played a
Dr.
season
Wade,
with a torn ACL?
I played the second half of the season with torn ACL. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get kids to play on a rolled ankle.
I'm not saying it was the smartest decision,
Yeah,
looking
but-
back, but we'd won the state championship my junior year, and we were undefeated. Like, they do what's the Max Preps does national rankings. We were like top 5 in the country.
The Lumberjacks.
Yes,
The Council Lumberjacks.
We won state, and then we were destroying everyone.
Yes.
We had a really good, really talented team for an 8-man team. I mean, I was not the most athletic guy on the team.
Yeah.
But there was some beasts on that team for a small school, and I wanted to win another ring, go back to back. So I had to miss like a month, I think, just trained and got the quad strong, braced it up, and I came back for playoffs. We didn't end up winning. We lost in the semifinals, but then I had surgery. But through that, it was like kind of lucky in that because I used the Boise State team surgeon, it re-sparked that relationship with Boise State, and I started hounding him. I don't know if Harson's ever talked about it publicly, but he always jokes about how like I would not let him rest. I was calling him.
Yes.
Every opportunity it took, I'd call him or text him. Or, I don't know if texting was a thing back then.
Or emails, really.
No,
right? Yeah, no
no.
Twitter for sure.
Yeah, and he would call me this date at this time, and I would literally just call until he would answer. Like I'm just hounding him. And by this point, I had surgery and was rehabbing. This was winter. And finally, like early the next year, it would be early 2008, he called me and said, "We've got a gray shirt walk-on spot for you." So I just kept training. It worked out perfectly with the knee to finish the high school year out, and was able to throw in track to finish. I won disc state that year, and then went to Boise State, and the gray shirt year helped me tremendously just was able to get like a full semester of training, getting my knee strong and then ready to hit it.
Well, I love that you brought that up. So let's go back to the things that have always hit me hard about you. Is family wasn't huge athletics, right? Like parents. I mean, they'd love to push you.
They were athletes, but
sorry, didn't play at a high level.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Not really been a huge part of the recruiting process. Your brothers and
No,
your sisters,
I
right?
think my oldest brother, like College of Idaho,
Right.
Albertsons at the time,
Right.
recruited him a little bit for basketball, but he didn't want to play. And my sister played. She did volleyball and track at TVCC and then volleyball at LCSC. So
That's awesome.
Great athlete. My other brother did sports in high school, but not recruited. So
you coming in sophomore. So to me, like, and this is where I'm talking with it, because I get hit up with the question all the time, like, how do we play for Boise State or a school like that? As a 10th grader, what gave you? You went by yourself to that camp. So you were on the Renegade team, so you
Yeah.
weren't with a team.
Mm-hmm.
You were by yourself. Plus, and if you've been on the Renegade team or if you played in that camp and seen the Renegade team, it's super hard to get noticed
Mm-hmm.
in there. Was that coming from you? Was that mom or dad? Or
that was all me. That was all me.
Where do you know where that came from? Why you're just like, man, I got to make sure these coaches see who I am. Like, shit, I'm over here. I see the big guys over here. I got to go prove myself. You know what I mean? Like, where did that come from? And then the same thing with Harson. Like the fact that you reached out to him so much, and it's a struggle sometimes for me to get kids to send. I mean, sometimes they'll tweet them a huddle, but when I say call them, they're like, whoa. I'm like, you can find almost everybody's contact information. You know what I mean? Like, how come you were fearless in that? / what gave you the confidence to do that, or was it just you didn't even realize it? You're just kind of just doing it.
I knew what I wanted.
Yeah.
Right, and that's I'm a very like logical. What's the next step? And I knew what I wanted. I wanted to play. I wanted to play football.
Right.
And so what's the next step? Like, I don't want this to end at high school. And I would have played anywhere, but obviously, like, you want to play at Boise State over a small school if you can. And then also I'm very competitive. I hate to lose. So once I got to the camp, it's like I'm not going to lose.
Right.
It's one, I knew I wanted to play, but two, like, you're not going to beat me.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. If you beat me one time, then we're going to go again until I figure it out. And
That's why you're still friends with me. You haven't beat me at anything.
But yeah, I mean, I'm very glad I started going early because by the time, like, I mean, they knew who I was by the second year I came back. Like, there was some continuity. Coach Hawkins was actually the coach for my first time I went. And so got to meet some of those guys. And then after my junior year, going into my junior year, it was Pete and those coaches. So by the time I was a senior, I had 2 previous camps to learn the ropes and like learn what's expected and what gets you noticed and how to approach and talk to the coaches. And so by the time I was a senior, it was just like, I mean, I just kind of was like, nothing to lose. I'm going to go balls to the wall and we'll see what happens. And same thing, no one's going to beat me. I'm going to flash, like I'm going to.
And that example of you being in line, like that's such a big thing. Like where kids will tell me all the time, I didn't get a lot of reps. So these like.
You got to take them.
Yes.
And that I feel bad. Like I feel bad as some of those guys, but like I trained as a defensive lineman, and then I was a dick. Like I'm sure people didn't like me, but I trained as a defensive lineman. I'd take all the reps at defensive line, and once we got to the competition period, I'm taking a guard out on offensive line. I'm playing guard. Like I'm getting in there, and I'm gonna like at that point my technique was so bad. Like if I go back and watch those film, I'm like ashamed at it, but I'm gonna be in there. I'm gonna be fast and strong and. You're not going to beat me. So it's like, I'm taking these reps. I'm going to get noticed. And coaches want that.
Yes.
Like,
you and I've talked about that a bunch.
Yeah, they want to see, it shows that fearlessness that you're going to do whatever it takes. And not everyone has that. And if you want to be successful, I think in football, you have to have that type of mentality. You can't sit and wait for it to come to you. You got to go take it.
And that's that conversation you and I have had, you got to take them. Like more than once. That's why I wanted to have this talk.
You can't sit there and wait for a coach to be like, especially in a camp situation.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how many hundreds, and I don't even know if there's 1,000, but there's unlimited kids there. And if you just sit back there and wait for a coach to come grab your hand and put you in, you're not going to get a rep.
Right. And most of the time it's something where people aren't confident in. You were playing offensive line, which you weren't even confident in, but you're like, still, I'm gonna go do it.
Yep.
Like, and that's
didn't know the plays. I mean, didn't know the plays. Didn't know how to play offensive line at that time.
I love it.
So it was just like I'm gonna go in there, like try to figure it out.
Love it. Let's go now gray shirt. So you went gray shirt, red shirt, correct?
Yep.
So you went gray shirt, red shirt. Then you play for Coach Pete, which is Idaho legend. You know what I mean? And I've had really small experiences with him. A lot of guys that have worked with him are that he's mentored and you know what I mean? Kind of give me like a little bit like what you learned through Boise State. Kind of give me the process, the battles, because it wasn't like, even your redshirt year, you didn't know if you were going to play. You know what I mean? When did you start starting? When did you start realizing, okay, I got a real shot to maybe get paid to do this one day? And, what did you take away from Pete? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What did you learn from him?
I mean, I could go on for probably an hour just on this topic alone. But,
yeah.
So
we can hit this another time, too, so we can talk about Pete all day.
Obviously came in as a defensive tackle with a torn ACL. I'm probably like maybe 270 pounds at this time. Fat, out of shape. I worked out in high school. I worked on the ranch. Like, it's hard work, but it's different than football. So like I said, that gray shirt year was massive for me to really, I just took 4 months of just meat and potatoes and strength training, and was in like 11 units. All I did was work out. Still was like 275, but really I had the opportunity to change my body. So yeah, I came in first spring as defensive tackle, didn't go well, wasn't playing well. It was like, looking back now, it's embarrassing. Came into fall camp, still as a defensive tackle, and the D-line coach finally like figured out how to spur me, and I took the leap and started playing at a high level on defensive line. So that's my redshirt year. I'm playing defensive tackle, but balled out, got Scout Team Defensive Player of the Year, thought I was on the track to like contribute and play, and the offseason rolls around and they tell me they want me to move to offensive line. And I'm like, no, not a chance. Like, no, I'm a defensive lineman. This is who I am. I love the defensive line room. It's so much fun. The guys are awesome. I still have friends from that defensive line to this day. And didn't want to do it. Fought it tooth and nail. I was really sick that spring. I ended up having to get like an emergency tonsillectomy. I was down to like 255. And still playing at a high level, balling out. And I did like a week at offensive line, hated it. Went back to defensive line, balled out, had the surgery, was out for a bit, but they just kept hounding me, not like in a good way. They knew they couldn't force me to do it, but the D-line coach finally came to me. It was in fall camp, and I was playing well. Like, it wasn't like I was a bad D-lineman, but we were stacked. Boise State sent, I don't know how many guys from the NFL on that defensive line. They sent like at least 6. The D-line coach called me in his office and basically said, I don't care how good you are, I'm never going to play you. And at this point, now I'm doing the, like, okay, do I transfer? I mean, at that point, I'm still like, there's no tape. I'm a small school kid. There's nothing, no D1 school is going to take me.
Right.
So I looked at the small schools, and I finally was just like, I don't think I want to go to an NAIA school or whatever. I'm gonna switch, and switch to offensive line, and just kind of picked it up pretty naturally. So that was my redshirt freshman year, on the scout team the whole year, but picked it up pretty quick. They moved me to center after like a month, and just was able to kind of naturally do some things offensive line wise. Like my footwork was naturally very good, so picked it up pretty easily. The mental side was the hardest part, the learning the playbook and stuff. Like I said, at council, it was I'd literally go to the line of scrimmage and I would communicate to my tight end and my center, like, I'm going to block him.
Yeah.
Like, it was just pure, we had a play and we knew what we were doing, but there was nothing more intense than that. So it took about a year to really learn the playbook and get into it. And then sophomore season, I was balling out. I went with the ones. Yeah, I went with the ones all off season because the starter had a knee surgery, I think. Balled out. They told me the starter was a 4-year starter, Thomas Bird, great player. They were going to keep him as the starter, but they wanted to start rolling me in. So I got in. I got a couple snaps my freshman year, but no starts. And sophomore year, game 1 we were down in Georgia, and I got in. They put me in for some plays there. Did okay. Had a fumbled snap, I think, so I didn't play a ton. But then got my first start that year, ended up having a high ankle sprain. So didn't play a ton more that season. And then junior year came, and it was my spot, and I took it and just ran with it.
Senior year, we get drafted.
Yes.
Yeah, which is crazy
Yeah.
for not playing offensive line, playing really for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I want to go to our P squad year. So you get drafted by the Broncos.
Correct.
And then you go to the P squad, and you talk to me about that, to where it's like you use that as a time to like gain leverage on people.
It's a redshirt year again.
Really. And
Yeah.
and I think about it all the time, like where, to me, like even my JC kids or my small school kids or something like that, to me, you have urgency compared to someone else, where it's like sometimes when you've already made it, it's like that guy can chill, like, oh, I got it and I'm here, until somebody puts pressure on him. The other guys, it's like we have urgency. So maybe they're only working this much or watching film, or you were learning the play / watching film, which helped gain you leverage. But to me, it's like, it's the old Kobe Bryant, you know what I mean, where he woke up earlier and got an extra workout in. By the end of the year, he worked out twice as much as everybody, right?
Yep.
I mean, literally, that's what you did in the P squad year.
Yep.
And that, with that urgency. So you P squad,
Yep.
you work harder than everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next year, your Peyton Manning comes in the room.
Yeah.
How give me that. How excited were you? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? How excited was the room? I mean, that was a crazy time.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, like, I look back, there's so much timing and luck involved. Like I said, you were talking about P squad. I mean, it was the same mentality, like, I'm never going to lose. I don't care where you put me. I'm on P squad. That sucks. Okay, well, you're just never going to beat me. I'm going to be the best practice player out here, getting in fights all the time. Defensive line's going to hate me, but you're not going to beat me. I don't care. You can punch me in the helmet all you want. Like, that hurts you, not me.
All right.
And then John Fox was my head coach my that practice squad year, and Gary Kubiak comes in, and we switch to West Coast offense, which is like perfectly suited to me. It's all speed and athleticism, that's the type of center I am. He calls me in the off season and like basically says, we love the way you practice. You got a shot. We switch schemes. They trade for a guy, so I'm the backup still in the off season. And it's the same story. I have to just scrap and claw and get every rep I can. I screwed up in the OTAs there. The story is, I mean, it could be lying, but that Peyton went to the coaches and specifically asked for me to be moved to the starter. And I did for one practice in OTAs, worst practice of my life. It was just a rough time. Like as the center, you have to be very assertive and dominant, like with the play calling. Basically, like everyone else needs to shut up. And I didn't have that confidence yet. You know, you got 7-year All-Pro vets telling you what to do. I was like, okay, no matter if it was the wrong thing, yeah. So messed that up, but they pushed me back down to the 2s. But like, whatever, you know, I'll just keep going. Fall camp rolls around, and they gave me another chance. We had 5 days of practice. They have a day off, and that's usually where they make evals. And they pushed me back up to the 1s, and I was like, I'm not screwing up this time. Just took it and ran with it, and was a starter from there on out.
You played every snap from game 1 all the way through the Super Bowl. As many snaps as you could play, right?
Yep.
Never missed one.
Yep. 21 games.
That's freaking crazy.
Including preseason.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Underneath Peyton.
Yeah.
So I got to hear some crazy Peyton story. You got to give me something on Peyton.
I don't know. I mean, gosh, there's so many. I loved playing with him. He was so great to learn from him. But like one thing I loved about him, I mean, NFL's hard. The schemes are hard. The offenses are complex. Going to Boise, we had a very complex offense, so it was a natural progression for me. But it wasn't that way for everyone. And like one story I remember in OTAs, that it was my rookie year, so I ended up being on P squad. But a lot of players will get the scripts pre-practice, so they'll look at, if I'm whatever position, I can look at the script and go, I'm going to get these plays, and they'll memorize, this is what I have to do. And Peyton knows that, and he's not like, we're not there to win the practice, we're there to win a Super Bowl. So he's going to start throwing curveballs at our players, at our offensive players, to make sure that they can withstand whatever the adversity. And that was like, I remember early on, he did that, and a young rookie wide receiver messed it up and just immediately blow up. Get him off the field. I'm being PG here for
you're good.
No,
you're good, man. You're good.
Get him off the field. Like, I mean, it was just, that man was all business when it came. It was winning. Like, winning is what matters.
Right.
Winning is the only thing that matters. Like, we're not here to protect anyone's feelings. Like, if you can't do the job, you need to get off the field until you can.
Right.
And the guy ended up playing and having a solid career for us. Like, ended up being a good player, but you know, it's unacceptable for you to be on the practice field and not know your job and not be able to withstand changes. Football is a very complex, very like rapid change business. You have to be able to react on the fly. And he would create those situations to create stress on our own players, which then, I mean, you saw his career. Obviously, everyone knows his career.
Right.
That's got to be one of the reasons that he was able to have success.
Yeah. That was a cool year for me. So we didn't even work together. We knew each other in college a little bit, but we never even worked out. But I had Shiloh, who was my first ever NFL guy, and we were working on a basketball court. He was coming off an injury. I'm running routes against him, which obviously weren't good routes. But then, you know, we got a call on a Wednesday from Wade Phillips. I showed up to a game on Sunday. It was crazy. And then a few weeks, that was like week 11, I think you guys played the Raiders, and you guys ended up winning the Super Bowl, which was really cool. And then for us to connect later, it was awesome. So now, you know, you win the Super Bowl, which is unbelievable, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? You know, from that, you know, what did you learn? Like, to me, like I talked to you about before, I wanted to sit down with Harsin. I want to sit down with Pete. I like learning from greatness. You know what I mean? You literally did what every young kid's trying to achieve. You know what I mean? What did you learn, or were you even able to like take anything away from it? Because you were still 23, 24.
I was 25.
25 years old, you know what I mean? And you just won the Super Bowl, you know what I mean? I mean, looking back now, is there anything that you realize, like, this is, I mean, what it took to get there? Like you said, it took luck. It took having Peyton. It took having the right guys. It took having, I mean, so many things falling. Literally the best defense that I've ever seen. You know what I mean? I mean, like, but everything fell into place.
Yep.
You know what I mean? What? Give me a little rundown. Or what did you take away from that?
I was so young and naive at the time. Man, I was just like,
on a good run.
Oh, we get to play another week? Cool. Like, I didn't really think more about it. Looking back now, as I've played a lot more years, I mean, it's hard to win. Like, it's hard to be good. It's hard to win. It's hard to sustain that. And I just think it takes such a level of intensity and focus and effort. I mean, it is not something you can just show up in fall camp and be like, oh, now I'm going to turn it on. No, if you're not turning it on in OTAs and full focus on being the best you can be, and that's just not just one person, the whole team has to do it. You have to be everyone facing the same direction towards the same goal. And I mean, this is something talking about Peterson, like there's so much psychology in football, I think, to win. Like the team has to all be focused in the same direction. You can't have anyone out for themselves, and it takes a lot of buy-in, and it's hard to get that buy-in, especially in the NFL where you got grown men. Everyone's got there's agendas popping up, contracts, families, situations. Like it's hard to do. It takes great leadership and focus, and I think that's something I feel like I got better at it, but throughout the years. But as I kind of stepped more into a leadership role of demanding that from the players around you, it's and even then, it's not you can lead a horse to water, right? But it's hard. It's hard to get everyone on the same page.
I think that's why I feel like I connected with you, because I got you a few years after that to where I think you were already on that level to where it was always greatness. Mm-hmm. And I could feel if I had a bad session with you, like now you'll tell me like when shit's not going right. But then you were, I don't know if you're trying to be polite, but it was almost like I could tell that wasn't good. Mm-hmm. Like, and it wasn't to the standard you needed. You know what I mean? And I was like, it made me. All of you guys were like that. You know what I mean? And your work ethic was always just from the jump. You were always one of the first ones back. You know, you and Purcell would want to be in right away, and it was literally like from the jump, we got to go. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Whether it was an injury or not, you know, and I used it in everything. You made me better at business, even though you didn't realize, because it was like. Your standard was so high because you've worked with the best in the world, and now you're working at this little place down the road with a guy that's your age, not a guy that's like you got to work with the best strength coaches in the world. You know what I mean? To where they're my mentors or your main coaches. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to give you the same product and value. You know what I mean? So like it was, I saw you already have that standard, and to where it was like it was contagious for me. Like if I didn't bring that. I mean, if I didn't get better every year, I mean, what we were doing then to where we were doing now, you know what I mean? If I didn't do that, I don't think you'd still be with me.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, just to give you some kudos, like, I wouldn't have stayed with you if you weren't an elite strength coach. Like, I mean, I'm very thankful for you and all the training we've been able to do. It's been awesome.
I think I'm fortunate that we were in such a small town to where you guys had nowhere else to go. I mean, really. I mean, besides you, all the other guys were here because their wives were here, so we're lucky for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you went to Boise State, so it was sweet. But I mean, it changed the whole trajectory of OTF and me, because it was like, what I'm doing is not good enough, and then being able to bring that to a 10-year-old has just been awesome. So, you know, without taking too much of your time, because you and I could chat all day. I'm going to give a quick. So you went to Charlotte. You got to play with Cam Newton, another phenomenal quarterback, which you've talked about his leadership, even though you got there and he was so hurt.
Yep.
Right? You know, where people can judge him being a diva or doing whatever. You said he was one of the hardest working, most competitive guys.
Love Cam.
Yeah. And then you've tore your ACL in high school. You had 2 hip surgeries.
Yep.
You shattered your ankle.
Yep.
You there was 2 hip surgeries, and then you tore your ACL again.
Yep.
And this last ACL is one where you and I have been through some mental grinding.
Yeah.
So this one, New England got rolled up on so bad. The other team, maybe we can get Robert to throw it in the podcast notes or in the video. But I mean, to where the other team
I won't be watching that.
I know it's trauma for you.
Yeah.
But really, where they'll bring. I mean, literally, they brought their players.
Yeah.
You know,
they were waving on the medical staff
because it was one of those ones. You know, it was a contract year.
Yep.
Right. I'm just bringing up a whole bunch of negative. You know what I mean?
It's all good.
You had so it was a contract year. You had a relationship end. You moved across country. You didn't have therapy there for a while because it was like you were on a team, you weren't on a team type of deal, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then we come to Idaho. We missed a few months, and then it was it's just kind of been a battle. You know what I mean? And then to me, what was crazy was the fact is still how hard you work now. How and we'll get into it, but how we got into some dark ways mentally, and then you figured it out all yourself. You know what I mean? Everything you used resources around you, but you figured out how to get out of it. But you've had all of those injuries. One of my hardest things I have to do with a 15-year-old on their first injury, because it's crazy traumatic with a 15-year-old. You know, I've had multiple surgeries too. Where did the work ethic come from? Like you always were like, you never wanted to be posted. You never wanted to work out when people were around. You never and that's one of my biggest pet peeves, where sometimes guys only work hard when somebody's watching. You were the complete opposite. It was like, if somebody's watching, you're working out the same hard, but you would rather it be where no one would have come into the gym and it was you and me for 3 hours, and where you were just getting your ass kicked. every day. Not once, every day.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then you did that even before you had me with the injuries. You know what I mean? To deal with those injuries and to deal with just that work ethic to where you did that. Where did that come from? Why do you do that? I mean, is it all because you're competitive? I mean, that's what you were talking about when you were younger, but how did all that come about?
Yeah, the first thing is from my family. And I mean, I was so blessed to grow up on a cattle ranch. Like, you can't grow up that way and not develop a work ethic because, I mean, like my family scratched and clawed for years. And the cattle ranching is not a lucrative business. At least the way we did it. And we never hurt for anything, but things are tight and you have to do your part as a member of the family. I mean, it didn't matter if we played a game on Friday night, we're up 7 o'clock, Mom makes breakfast, we're working. Doesn't matter. Fall camp, and when I was in high school, we'd have 7 a.m. practice. I'd practice and I'd go, hey, the rest of the day, 7 p.m. practice again. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, that's really where I think you have to learn a work ethic. I imagine some people kind of have it naturally, but everyone can learn it.
I agree.
And so that's where I'm not going to quit until the job is done. And injuries are hard. Like, it probably seems simple now because my first major injury was,
Your ACL?
16 years ago. But they're mentally taxing. They're obviously physically taxing because every day you wake up and you know what you physically were capable of doing, and you stand up out of bed and you can't even walk normally or whatever the situation is. It can really mentally grind you down. I think the biggest thing for injuries, especially with young players, like, you just have to focus on the little victories. Like, you kind of have to get mired into the details and, like, what's the next minor goal?
Right.
You blow out your knee or shatter your leg. What's the next goal? Be able to put, like, right after I broke my leg, it's like, okay, when can I put weight on it? And then I'm grinding. So it's a full bore grind. Okay, how can I get there? 6 weeks later, okay, I'm putting weight on it. Okay, another 4 weeks, then I can walk. And you just have to take the little victories and celebrate them and, like, view those as massive victories. You can't. If every day you're sitting there and thinking, man, I should be able to do this, or I used to be able to do this, you're not going to succeed.
Right.
Because you can't be positive, and a positive mindset is massive in injuries and being able to attack every day. Not every day is going to be perfect. You're going to have bad days, but if you're not having bad days, you're not training hard enough, in my opinion.
So 2 things of that. So the notoriety thing to me is huge. So, like you said from the beginning, I'll bring us back, and this is, I'm just trying to relate it to the struggles I have with all of my athletes, even my professional athletes, some of our friends. You said the reason why you wanted to get recruited is because you wanted to play football. Mm-hmm. So you did whatever it took.
Yeah.
Right? But you weren't trying to play for Boise State so that the girls or your parents at Boise State or your friends knew you played football at Boise State. It's because you wanted to play football, you know?
It was the biggest opportunity I had.
We were lucky.
Yeah.
That I feel like we were lucky that we didn't have social media then.
Correct.
I mean, they can leverage it now, but we didn't have that to where everybody watched every move of ours, you know? Mm-hmm. And they have that now to where it's like everything everybody does, they're watching. So it's like you have to be conscious, you know, how do we look and what are we doing? Is the coach watching? Oh, they're not watching, so I can chill. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it's changed that, you know what I mean? To where it's super rare for me to have athletes to where everything is because they want to play that sport. Mm-hmm. Now, the more I get to know them, and some of my best kids, and I'd rather them know this, that you're playing this to impress pops or to impress your friends or the girls or the guys. You know what I mean? You're trying to impress somebody to get there. Like, my whole identity's been to do this to impress people, so I'm going to do this. Not because you love the sport. And the ones that really love it, you know, like I talked to you about, like Isaiah Wright and silently working in a gym. You know what I mean? Where, like, really all of our NFL guys, I've been fortunate enough that the reason why you guys have been there, it's never been for somebody else.
Yep.
Right? At least I haven't seen it. And to me, that's huge. So, like, for you to talk to it, say because I want to get to it too, but you're mentoring a young kid to where, how many coaches can I get to talk to, or like, what does my Twitter film look like, or my Instagram, or what am I doing cool on a Friday night or Saturday night with everybody else? Like, that wasn't your deal, you know what I mean? And then even after you got paid, even after you won a Super Bowl, after it was hard for you to go in Boise without somebody asking something from you or wanting something from you, you still would come to a hole in the wall in Meridian and work your ass off for 3 hours in the morning every single day with no highlight. and you didn't want the highlight.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Why do you think kids want that now? Or how do you think that if I'm trying to make an influence on young kids, or you when you start coaching one day, how do you want to make that how do we change that?
Social media is obviously an interesting, I'm going to call it a challenge. Obviously, it can be leveraged and great things can come from it. I mean, I think, it is a positive, but it needs to be used in the right way. And I think the biggest challenge, like some of these problems, it's the like, why are you playing? Not social media. Like what is the goal, and then why do you want that goal? And for me, it was like I want to be the best. I want to play football, and I want to be the best. And I do not want to lose ever. And
I'm sorry, you still have never beat me. Sorry, keep going.
So he's put me on the same team.
That's true.
Yeah.
So you want to be the
play
best.
you at spike ball.
You want to be the best ever.
Yeah. But the why thing is like I saw so many guys in the NFL, freak athletes, and they come in and they've just like, to their credit, like they've just balled at every level. And they get to the league, like it doesn't matter anymore. I don't care. There's a couple guys, you know all their names, that are athletically gifted and they're Hall of Famers, and like a guy like a Von Miller, like, yeah, that guy's a freak. He's a freak at every level, even at the NFL. This is just absolute, athletically better than everyone. There's a handful of those guys in the NFL. Everyone else, you're on the same field. Everyone's the best of the best. Everyone's working the most. And if you don't really have it crystallized of why, like you're there now, or whatever level you're in, high school, college, whatever, you're there. Like, why do you want to be there? If you don't have that crystallized and pointing your intentions and direction in the right way, then you'll falter. You'll get distracted. Whether it's social media, whether it's girls, whether it's partying, whatever, like you're going to get distracted if you do not have your focus and why you want to be elite at whatever you're doing. It is like imperative to have that crystallized. That's where you have to have the big picture set. Like, what do I want out of this? I get so frustrated with so many football players that I played with. What do you want from this?
Right.
What do you want what do you want in 20 years? What do you want to look back on your career in whatever endeavor you're doing? What do you want to look back and think about? Are you going to be ashamed of this, of like your distractions? Like, there's no excuses. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's all on you. There's luck and timing and stuff involved, but did you give the effort that was required?
That's it.
Be honest.
Yeah.
So you need to be like, take a step back and be honest with yourself. And if you can do that in the moment, and I mean, there's bad luck in this too. Like I mean, with my injuries too. Like, shit happens.
Right.
But all you can do is every day do the best you can do to take the next step. I think that's like the best answer you can give. It's not easy,
100%.
but
and I think
it's the only answer if you want to succeed.
And I think that helps limit like the anxiety that comes with winning or losing. Because to me, there's a burden with winning. Because then you have to keep winning, and then there's anxiety of losing or failure, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's human nature. When you win, you want to slack.
Exactly.
That's human nature. You're fighting however many years of humanity. Like, that's not easy to beat.
Right. And one of my favorite quotes of that is, when it's easy, double down.
Yeah.
Go as hard as you can. Instead of when it's easy, chill.
Yeah.
But to me, like kids, you're like what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? And I've seen with my friends. You know what I mean? And I might have even done it when I was younger too. But you're almost too scared to go as hard as you can, because if you did go as hard as you can, and then it didn't work out, then you have something to fall back on. Well, I didn't know if I really wanted to do that anyways.
Yeah.
You know you did.
That's dishonesty.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And I see it more now because it's on display.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm trying to show kids, like, be authentic. Give it everything that you got. You will feel so much better after you lost. But as long as you're like, hey, literally everything that I had, you know what I mean? Like, this was it. And then you can learn from it. Like, okay, I lost. You know what I mean? I gave everything I got. And sometimes the guy's more talented, but usually it was like, okay, he prepared maybe not more than me, but smarter than me.
Yep.
Like, goes back to like how you would prepare you were the smartest center in the NFL, right? Like, how you prepared it wasn't just working too. You have to figure out how to be smart with it. But I think the harder you work, the more it leads you to those paths.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
if I can step in.
No, you're good.
Not only, like, even if you give it everything you got, and you lose and it's done, whatever you're doing, it's done, it is not a failure. And if you, that attitude, like, it may not be the path you chose or envisioned for your life, but it will work out.
Right.
It's one way or another. I don't know how many guys I played with that their career, injuries, whatever, didn't turn out, but they had that attitude, and now they're coaching at a very high level.
Right.
Like, it just but if they didn't have the correct mindset at the beginning, it wouldn't have led to the opportunities that it has brought to them now.
No, it's huge.
It will lead to that mindset will lead to. It may not be what you envisioned when you were 16, but it will lead to a great career, a great path.
And I really like. I don't think I've fine-tuned it either, you know what I mean? But that's what the message / that's what I'm trying to teach the guys that work for me, my coaches, and all of our kids, to where it's like, if I can give that, we're going to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where, like, even the name of the podcast and, like, you know, our shirts that we have, like, the standard, it's like, the
you
standard
will win. It's a matter of time.
Yeah, and then the standard isn't playing in the NFL, but the standard is like, how hard are you working and you giving it everything that you got, to where it's like the ones that we can get to change and to realize, like, who cares about how many likes you get? And to be honest, you're probably going to get more likes if you're working harder anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if we can just instill that in our kids, they're going to kill it in whatever they do. That's to where almost every guy that works for me used to work out for me.
Yeah. Or
the guys that used to work out for me, like, I'm writing a letter of recommendation, or I wish I could hire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're going somewhere. You know what I mean? And to where I just wish we could leverage that. And I think so. I really think it's like anything to me. Like, I think it is going on a pendulum. I think people have seen how bad social media can get, to where I think there are a lot of kids now, and maybe we're in a lucky environment where we're seeing it, but there are a lot of kids now that are putting in everything that they have. But I think that if more of my kids, and a lot of, like, really, really talented kids, you know what I mean? Those are the ones that are they're only given 90%, because they are, your whole life is I'm the best football player. And now when you're a senior, everybody's about even. Like you said, when you get in the NFL, you've been the best athlete your whole life. You get there, everybody's the best athlete. Yeah. Everybody's been the best athlete, right? And so it's the guys that are willing to sell it all out and give everything they got. You know what I mean? So where that's literally, like, now that even just talking about it, it's kind of helped me formulate that idea right now with this conversation. That's what I want to give to my coaches, my staff, everybody like that, you know? And then let's jump back to where you were saying the milestones on your injuries, right? That's another thing that goes with the work ethic. And I think that this is something that, I mean, to be honest, I fucked up with our recovery on this last ACL. You came from missing a couple months of PT. I didn't dive into that as much as I should have, and it wasn't your fault you missed PT. It was just because where you're at, transition in houses and the teams, to where in my head, okay, it's a month timeline. I got to get us here, and in this month we do this. Instead of it should have been instant, milestones. We get our range of motion back. Yeah. Then we get the circumference in our quad back. Then we can start building, bilateral competency, or learn how to squat. You know what I mean? And then to where we went too fast, and then back, and then we went down, and then we went here, and then we would call everybody else. You know what I mean? So, you bringing up those milestones, you don't even know. I mean, but Jake and I and our whole staff now, we've been working with Boise State's therapists, Steve up front, our therapist, and stuff like that, where we're trying to create a milestone basis, to where now I even want to do a goal setting process, to where Holly Tanner was in, Holly Tanner. Yeah. She was in, and she's like, man, what, do you always set goals like this and everything? And I'm like, I do. How do we build those milestones moving forward? And I don't know if you and I haven't really talked about it, but I don't know if you write them down very much, but I know you have, when you're done playing ball, whenever that will be, what you're going to do. You know, while you're playing ball, what you're going to do, know? Is this a process from Pete, or, I know I just rambled a bunch there, but how have you set your milestones? How have you created those, not just in the injury, but like through football, through work, through what you want to do in life, you know what I mean? And how I want to learn how to leverage that, again, without how many kids that I get to work with, how many athletes I want to work with, because to me, that's where you could, in a year's time, jump 3 years compared to somebody else who's only gone 6 months. Yep. You know what I mean? So how do you have a goal-setting process or a milestone process? Or
I don't. I mean, I definitely have goals. I definitely have a goal-setting process. I think it may not be what people would recommend or whatever, but I mean, I don't know. I just, in my mind, I know it's crystal clear in my mind. I don't have to write it down. It's in my mind. What is the next step? My current goal, we're crushing it with the knee. It's feeling great. It's get back to feeling 100. Yep. Football 100. Yep. Not life 100, football 100. And I mean, that is crystal clear in my mind, and that is like, so I structure my entire life about that. I structure workouts, diet. The rest of my life is like, if I don't get the workout in, like, or everything else is on pause until I check the boxes on the things that need to be checked. And then once I have the time, we get our workout in, everything's great. Okay, now I can do the rest. But I don't know where that comes from. I mean, part of that's just, I'm a very logic person. I'm just,
Always have been.
get back to the beginning. Like, it comes back to being honest with yourself. Like, where am I? This is where I'm at. It's not where I want to be. What's the next step? And shut your ego out of it. Like, be honest. And how can I take one positive step forward?
Right.
It's definitely, Pete was definitely a part of that family. I mean, there's countless numbers. You're a part of that. Like, it's hard to give credit to one person or one thing. I think the biggest factor is being honest with yourself. And there's times I've been dishonest with myself, and that's where you have people like you and other people around you that can check you when you need it.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing you say and taking away from that is the you hear it all the time, but have a vision. But even for most people, it's like, hey, lose weight, or I want to make money. But like how you said it multiple times now, like the fact that you've had a crystal clear vision, like
vision is nothing without a plan.
Yeah,
you got to have it, and it doesn't have to be a 10-year plan.
Right.
It doesn't have to be.
What are you gonna do this week?
Exactly.
What are you doing this week?
What are you doing?
Crystal clear.
Are you thrilled with your diet? No. Did you go grocery shopping and prep this week?
Right.
Then okay. Well, that's step number one.
Well,
you got to start there.
I've asked my boys, and I'll be like, why are you playing football? Well, I mean, the fact that they're in the thick of it and playing, and they couldn't give you a reason why they're playing, and have a vision of what they're trying to achieve. You know what I mean? To me, that's awesome. That means there's a huge there that I can help solve, or that other kids.
And I mean, to be honest, I probably didn't have that.
Right.
There's no way I could have crystallized the way I'm speaking now back then.
Same. But the
I
whole point of this is
I relied on then of like, I will not lose. That's what like enabled me to keep stacking those wins and keep the growth forward. It's not easy to crystallize your vision.
Right.
It's not simple, but it takes a lot of like introspection and thought, and you just kind of got to grind through it. It's not a fun process to like think, to truly analyze yourself and your motives, and it's not easy, but if you want to succeed in whatever endeavor you're choosing, I think it's necessary.
Yeah, and I think for us, to be clear, like both of us probably, I mean, we weren't thinking any of this when we were younger.
No.
But I think the platform that both of us have is to help influence younger people, or even our friends or older people, and we're still learning every day, but to maybe help you get there faster, or have some leverage to be able to get to where you want to go. You know what I mean? And that was the whole reason why I wanted to do this, because I look back at the mistakes I made, and I mean, really, the reason why I started off the field was insecurity about not being a good athlete. And my whole life was being an athlete, and I was never good enough, and I was like, there had to be a better way. You know what I mean? Like, I was trying as hard as I could, and that's why I did this. You know what I mean? And so now, the more that I see it, how can we help get those kids there faster? You know what I mean? And that's kind of like the whole reason why I love this. Why I get to hang out with you. Why I've learned so much from you guys. All of our pro athletes, all my young athletes, we learn from all the time. You know what I mean? So it's huge. Let's maybe not so motivational. Give me some of the craziest players you've ever been around. Maybe athletically, personalities wise. It's still a new podcast. I might not even listen to it. All right.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to name a name, you don't have to. But who's somebody that stands out on one of your teams? I mean, you work with some Hall of Famers.
I've played with so many big name NFL guys.
How about McCaffrey? You talk about McCaffrey's work ethic and how.
Oh my gosh.
You're a big fan of his selfies, so because how good he looks. But give me a story of.
Yeah, Christian's a beast. Talk about someone who is. I mean, I'd be hard pressed to say I played with a guy that was more driven than him. I mean, that man is dedicated. His whole life is, and what I love too is it's about winning. Like, yeah, he's successful off the field. He kills it in advertising and like all the other things, but that man is so focused on like, what do I need to do to be the best player that I can be so that we can win? I think that's so important. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I could go on and on, but like diet, workouts, body work, everything in his life is tuned.
How much
perfectly
how much
timed
you
out.
think he spends on himself?
Oh my God, I'm not even gonna. Yeah, it's definitely six
7
figures.
6?
I don't know about 7, but I mean, yeah, he has. You got chefs, you've got all the bodywork guys, constant training, flying trainers out to work him out. Like and the other thing too is like he has all the help, but he knows it too.
Right.
That help is there to check him because he knows how to do it himself. He can, but then he's got the help there to make sure to just feedback and yeah, he is unbelievable. I would say probably the most dedicated player I've ever played with. I'm so thrilled to see him having the success that he's having in San Fran. We went through some tough years there in Carolina together, but he's balling, and he deserves all the success that comes to him.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, he I always wished I could help him with one of his injuries, but he obviously had the best guys in the world. But he's a fun guy to watch for sure, especially with what we do. You know, so. With us right now, you know, we're still getting healthy, waiting for, you know, really the right team, you know what I mean? You're at the point of your career, you want to go win, you know what I mean? When we're done playing, you've talked to me about, like, mentoring, you know, football players, just because that's who you get along with, I think, or you're most familiar with. I think eventually maybe it'll be more than football, but besides football, you've talked about, like, I want to teach these guys this, you know what I mean? What do you think, you know, what is some of the big lessons that maybe we haven't hit on yet? You know, I know we've just been bullshitting for a while about it, but what do you think some of the stuff that you want to teach these kids that you wish you would have known when you were younger, or that you could help them, you know, navigate the recruiting process, navigate the life process, you know what I mean, through football. You might
difficult
not know
question. We've definitely covered some of the biggest things I would say already. I'll go back to the social media aspect. Like I think you have to use it. The biggest thing I would say is be authentic. You don't have to be anyone other than yourself. You don't have to, like, I'm terrible on social media. I don't post ever. I don't care
don't
about
help us at all.
Yeah. It's not me. Like,
Yeah.
It's not I don't care to post all the time. It's not in my nature to be showing what I'm doing all the time. That's not everyone. Everyone's different. Be authentic, be yourself. And I mean, I know we already covered it. I just think the biggest thing is like having that vision. I think the most frustrating guys I played with in the NFL were those guys who, I mean, literally, we could draft a guy hot first 3 rounds. You come into the building, and everyone front office is talking, hyping him up. I'd spend 1 week with them, and I go, "You need to cut him right now." They look at me with shock on their face. What are you talking about? I go, "Listen, I like him. He seems like a great kid. He won't learn the lesson until he's never learned that this can be gone from him in the snap of a finger, so he will never put in the effort that's required."
Comes down to work.
You got to put it in at that level. Like, it's football, professional athletics in general is the ultimate meritocracy. There's zero like failure, or there's zero room for failure.
Right.
And if you don't have it crystal clear and aren't willing to put in the work, it's just a matter of time. If you're early round draft, they may keep you around because they owe you money. They may keep you around for a bit, but it comes back to, what do you want out of this?
Yeah.
Do you want to be a bust? Because that's where you're headed. So it's just it's having that vision. And like I said, when you're 16 years old, I don't expect you to be able to map out 15 years down the road. That's not what I'm saying, but understanding what is required, and then why you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's a hard lesson to learn, but I don't think it's difficult to teach.
Yeah.
It's difficult to learn. It's difficult to teach. I would love to work with some kids, and if you can put them one step forward to where they are in the mental side. I think the mental side is the biggest.
I think it comes down to what we started the whole thing with.
Yeah.
And this whole podcast is work.
Yeah.
And I think all those lessons can be learned. Speaking of work, you and I, we still getting it. Excited to see where we finish up.
Yeah.
Man, I really appreciate you doing this. I know these aren't your favorite things talking about yourself, man, but this is and this, you know, it's new for me too. And to have you on this early, man, I really appreciate it. Thanks for everything, brother.
I appreciate it, man. This was awesome.
Yes, sir.